And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of MichaelGaddis.com and FrontierLoanGroup.com, and I am speaking to Stephen Brummer of FRFamilyLaw.com. And during the break, we were talking about selfies, but we won't go into that. And we caught Michelle taking selfies of herself over there. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about, before the break, we were talking about a little bit about the car. You were mentioning about the equity, and I wanted you to kind of finish up on that topic because I thought it was pretty fascinating. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
It goes back to what you can keep in a Chapter 7, and usually there are exemptions that will apply that I can help to keep a piece of property, a vehicle, or something like that. And there's an issue when you have a loan, and most people do, when they have a car loan in their bankruptcy, can they keep that? And that, again, depends on several factors. And what generally has to happen is because of the bankruptcy discharge we were talking earlier, the two components of that transaction are the promissory note and the lien that the lender has on the vehicle. Your bankruptcy discharge is going to get rid of that promissory note. You don't have to pay anymore, but that doesn't mean you can keep the car. They'll take the car if you don't keep paying, but you can't simply keep paying. The lender is going to want what's called a reaffirmation, and that is a new contract with them to make the same payments. Now, most people would say, well, okay, I'll just sign that, I don't care. But if you're upside down on the car too much, or if you don't have regular income that can cover it, the court might not approve that. So you might not be able to keep that car, even though you might not have any equity in it. The trustee won't take it, but the court won't let you reaffirm it, and then the lender might repossess it. So this is another area where if you've got a vehicle with a loan, you definitely want to talk to competent counsel before you file your case, because you might just lose your car because you didn't know this was an issue.
And let me ask you a question. If you through a bankruptcy, it obviously discharges your personal obligation on the debt. However, if you sign a reaffirmation agreement, what's the effect of that?
You're now liable for that debt for the rest of the term. You can't file bankruptcy again with me or anybody else for a number of years. So that's why the court will look at that. If they think it's not in your best interest, they're not going to let you sign the agreement and have it in effect. The objective, of course, of Chapter 7 is to give you, or the debtor, a fresh start, get you out of debt and give you a fresh, clean start. Well, a new loan on a $15,000 car with a balance on the loan of $30,000 is not in your best interest, and the court's not going to let you sign that. So if that's what you're facing, what I'll often advise clients to do is let that car go. Get something else cheaper, easier. Dump that car, because you will be able to get rid of that vehicle and that upside down loan in your Chapter 7.
But it comes down to what we were talking about earlier. It comes down to emotions a lot of times.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I love that car. That's my favorite car. That's my dream car. But you get rid of it. I mean, because what you have in a bankruptcy is you have a trustee who's kind of he's a disinterested party to your transaction. He's looking at your situation like just from a strictly numerical number standpoint. And if he says that car's not right for you, you owe $15,000 more than it's worth, why in the world would I allow you to sign a reaffirmation agreement? He's almost like the goalie for emotions, right? He's supposed to stop you from doing silly things.
Actually, in some ways, that's the court's job. The trustee's position is very interesting. All of the powers of your creditors are vested in the trustee for the duration of your case. And how the trustee gets paid is really interesting, Michael, and that is they get a very small stipend for a no-asset case, a case where no assets are distributed or collected, a liquidation case where I basically am able to protect all the debtor's property. But if the trustee is able to liquidate some property, they get a percentage of what they're able to distribute. So they're looking for that house, that car, that boat, that jet ski, that piece of jewelry. I had a case a few years ago. I was in the 341A meeting, which is a meeting of trustees and creditors and debtors. Every case you have to go to this meeting. And I attend this with my clients, and you had asked about the mills, and I have a great story about mills as well. But sitting up at the desk with the trustee was a young debtor with diamond earrings in her ear. And the trustee said, are those diamond earrings real? And she said, yes, they are. And he said, are they on your petition? Did you list them? Are you required to list everything you own? She says, I don't know. He flips through the petition, doesn't see it. He says, take them off and hand them over.
Oh.
Sitting there in the room,
Oh.
she took off the earrings and handed them over. Now, did she lose them? We don't know, but what we do know is the trustee took possession of them. It's going to have them appraised. If she can amend her petition to protect them, she will. If not, say goodbye to the earrings.
Wow.
And that was a mill case. That was a case with someone from one of the big mills that is, I believe, still operating here in San Diego.
That is incredible.
It happens. It happens.
That is
every day.
incredible. So that goes back to what I'm telling you. You got to go to somebody who knows what they're doing, that would not allow you to show up to court hearing with giant diamond earrings on.
Unless you've exempted them. It's okay. You can have the Rolex as long as you can protect it. That's the most important thing. It's not that you can't have nice things. You have to be able to protect them with the proper exemptions.
And that's all into structuring your petition.
Correct.
Wow. See, that right there is the difference between the mill and a professional.
100%.
Right there. Well, let's talk a little bit here with the time we have left about another issue that a lot of people are interested in, which is credit repair.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about the post-BK effect of credit.
Yeah, well, this is one of the main issues that I get questions about. What happens after? Okay, I get the discharge. Am I going to never be able to buy a car? Am I going to be able to buy a house? Am I going to get a credit card? Is my credit gone for the rest of my life? And the answer is absolutely not. You can get all those things, and actually sooner than you think. You can get a mortgage. It depends on what type of mortgage and which chapter of bankruptcy you file. Within 2 years, you can get an FHA or VA mortgage, and within 4 years, a conventional loan. So if you're looking to buy a house in the near term, probably you don't want to do a bankruptcy, or if you're going to do a bankruptcy, plan to not buy a house for the next 3 to 4 years. In terms of other loans, remember, there's no law that says if you file bankruptcy, you can't be lent to ever again. These are individual lender decisions. So if you walk into a car dealership with a bankruptcy on your record, they'll deal with you. You may pay a little more in interest or a lot more in interest, but you'll be able to get that lease or that loan. Or if you can, wait a few more years. And what you see is what I call the hockey stick effect. Most of my clients come to me with their FICO scores in the 400s, 500s, low 600s. They're already having a problem with their credit. They're not coming to me with 850 FICO scores and wanting to file bankruptcy. So you're not going to see a big hit from 520 to 510 or 505. After the bankruptcy is over, it's a common misconception that your credit is going to go down. That's incorrect. It starts to go up like a hockey stick. Why is that? You get solicitations for credit cards. They will come find you because you're low-hanging fruit. You can't file bankruptcy again for 8 years. You have no debt, and they're hoping you'll get into trouble, and then call me and say, hey, Steve, I have to file again. And my answer is, I can't really help you with that. You're stuck. So they take the credit cards, they use them for gas and groceries. I'm from New York. We say groceries. I'm from Brooklyn. We say groceries.
That's
there.
funny.
So you use them for gas and groceries. You pay them off. You pay off a little bit at a time, but you keep the balances low, and you start to build credit. Another question I get is, well, can I rent an apartment or a house? Well, of course you can. These are individual lender decisions. You'll probably do better with a private homeowner, like a condo or a townhouse, somebody who owns that property, than you will with a corporate ownership, because they're going to run your credit, and they might have corporate practices or policies that say you have a Chapter 7 in the past 3 years, we're not renting to you. So I'll often advise clients, if you're looking to rent an apartment complex, you might run into some problems. Try to look on Craigslist for an apartment. That shouldn't be an issue. There's nothing that says you can't rent an apartment if you had a bankruptcy. Nothing that says you can't rent a house if you have a bankruptcy. It'll stay on your credit report for a number of years, up to about 10 years for a 7 years for a Chapter 13. So it's going to be on there for the good next few years. But just because it's on your credit report doesn't mean that it prevents you from doing anything. And after a decade or so, it'll fall off the report, and your credit score will be where it would be if it didn't exist, and this will all be behind you.
So do you do credit repair in your actual office?
We don't actually repair your credit, but we will assist clients. What I'll often do after the case is over is I'll call up a client and just make sure everything's going okay, and have them pull their credit reports again. You can get a free credit report, by the way. The federal government, I should put this information out there, you get a free credit report once a year from each of the bureaus at annualcreditreport.com. I'll have them pull that up and see that everything's been properly discharged. If something is listed on their credit report as still active, and a creditor has not discharged the debt, then we have to get ugly with them, and we've done that.
Well, we're out of time for today, but let me ask you a question. If someone wants to get a hold of you, Stephen, what do they need to do?
Well, they can go to our website. It's frfamilylaw.com. They can call me at the office, 858-720-8250. and I'm happy to take every, like, unlike the mills, I take every call. I'll talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes, see if we can make an appointment and have you come in and talk with me.
Well, Paul's over there waving a finger at me saying we're running out of time. Well, I want to thank you, Stephen, for coming in today. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank my guest, Michelle Herrera from Michael Gaddis Realty Group. And as always, I am here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. discussing everything and anything and everything related to real estate. You're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.